Hey friends, it's Sarah from She's Crafty and She Knows, and today I'm going to show you how to finger knit a headband ear warmer. Now this is a super cute, fun, beginner level finger knitting tutorial, but if you've never done finger knitting before, I recommend you stop this video, go back and watch my how to finger knit video. It is a basic intro to finger knitting and it'll be super helpful if you have those basics down. I will put a link to that video in the description below this video so that it's super easy for you to find. In that how to finger knit video, I show you how to finger knit using 2 fingers, 3 fingers, and 4 fingers. And for this video, to do the headband ear warmer, we're going to be finger knitting with 4 fingers. So make sure you have those basics down and then come back to this video and you can get started. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so I have my yarn right here. This is by Loops and Threads. It's part of the Charisma line and it's from Michaels. I will link all the supplies I'm using in the description below this video. But this is a bulky weight 5 yarn. So I kind of like the heavier yarn specifically for these kind of ear warmers. So we're just going to go ahead and get started doing finger knitting. I'm going to assume you watched the how to finger knit video and you're familiar with the 4-finger finger knitting. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Okay, all we're going to be doing is finger knitting a pretty long section like this until you get a length long enough to go around the head of the person it's for. So if it's a gift, obviously you're going to have to estimate. Now here's where I went wrong when I first learned how to do this. I was finger knitting a long enough piece to wrap around my head loosely. So I kind of just put it around there real loose and I didn't pull it tight. And this has a lot of give to it. So let me stop and show you. This is one I've already made. It's really cute, turned out really cute. This one fits well, but the first one that I made, I did it even bigger and you can see it has a lot of stretch, a lot of give to it with the knitting. So if you do it too big and real loose, if you wrap it on your head and you kind of let it be real loose wrapped around, it's going to end up being too big once you get it completely finished. So when I do it, I finger knit a long enough section that I can kind of stretch it out like this and it touches, it just barely meets while it's stretched out. So that to me was the big difference maker, was making sure that when I'm making it a length that does wrap around my head. It does meet, the ends do meet, but it's well pulled taut around your head. You're really kind of pulling on it and it meets that way, not a loose. So you're not going to do the exact circumference of your head. You don't want to measure your head and then knit something that exact length because it will end up being too big because it really does have a stretch and a give to it. I know that's not helpful. I can't give you an exact length. A lot of times people want me to tell them an exact length to finger knit something, and it really does depend on the yarn you're using, how much give, how big your finger knitting specific knits are, how big your head is. There's so many factors, and so I really can't give a specific exact size, but you can kind of wrap it around tight and get a good idea there. So go ahead and just keep doing your finger knitting. And once you start getting past a foot, kind of stop and start, figuring out how much longer you think you need to go. You can stop, kind of go to a mirror, pull it around and kind of get an idea of how much further you need to do the finger knitting. But we're going to keep going. I know that I need, from the ones I've already done before, for me, about 16 inches. With this, gets me a pretty good little headband ear warmer that fits me perfectly. So I'm going to keep finger knitting this until I have my length good enough, and then I will be right back. So let's stop right here and see. I'm going to kind of wrap it around my head, stretch it out, and you want to kind of wrap it around the way that you'd be wearing it. So don't, just do it around the top of your head. Do it the way that it'd be worn, kind of around the base of your neck, up over your ears, towards the top of your head, just like a headband would be. So I know that I need a few more inches. We're not quite there. Okay, let's try it one more time. Okay, so this is good for me. This meets in the middle. When it's stretched out, it goes all the way around the base of my neck, over my ears, and I can meet it together pulling on it. You don't have to pull it like as tight as it can go, but just kind of pull it where, you get a good little stretch to it like this. Once we're right here, it's hard to tell, but this right here is the back side. It curls up on itself, which is kind of what makes it difficult. So let me try to unroll it. But when you have your fingers like this, with your knuckles kind of turned like this is the back side. It has more straight lines, and if you flip it over, this is the knitted side. This is what would be pretty, the outside of the headband. So we want it to be where the underside is up. So the side that's kind of curly and it has all these horizontal lines. You're going to keep it like this and you're going to curl it around. This is the hardest part of the whole thing, so just stay with me for this. Once you do this, you'll be good to go. Okay, so once you have it curled all the way around, you're going to find the first stitch over here and you're going to put your finger through it, making sure that you don't twist it at all. So I can see the first stitch right here. You're looking for the first knitted stitch and you're gonna put it right on your pointer finger, just like that. Okay, do you see how the whole thing is not twisted? We didn't twist it and then find a stitch. The whole thing is flat, and this is all the bottom side, the underneath right here. And I now have my finger through the first stitch on the outside. Okay, so we're gonna keep finger knitting the exact same way. We have 2 loops. The only difference now is that we already have 2 loops on our pointer. We're gonna finger knit just like normal. But now when we get here, we have 3 loops on our pointer and then 2 on the other ones. We're gonna take the bottom 2 and go over. That is the only different step for this. So now we're gonna go back through the next stitch and we're gonna do it again. And you're gonna do the bottom 2 over the top and then keep finger knitting the rest just like you normally would. This is attaching it and you're able to go around again to make it wider. So the next loop is the furthest out. When you really flatten it, it's this furthest out little loop. Hopefully that makes sense because it kind of curls up. So sometimes it's hard to tell what the outside loop is. So you really want to flatten it and then find the most outside loop. I can tell I've already done this one, like I said, because the yarn is coming through it. So not that one. You want to go right to the next one, right here, put your finger through it. I'm going to do a couple really close so that you can really see. Now that I have 2 loops on this finger, I'm going to just finger knit like I normally do. Do the bottom 2 on this one over the top, and then do this the way you normally would. Okay, we're going to find the next loop. So I can tell I already did this loop right here because this yarn is coming through it. And then we're going to do this loop right here, this next outside loop. Then we're going to finger knit like we normally do. Take the bottom 2 over the top. We're going to find the next loop. I can tell it's right here. This is the hardest part of the whole thing. So once you get this bottom 2 over the top, the whole thing will feel easy. It is just combining and kind of adding on this outside, attaching it together that feels confusing at first. Okay, so here we are. If you ever forget, like this loop looks big and sometimes it's easy to want to go back through the same loop. I can tell I don't need to because the yarn is already going through there. So you want to go on to the next one, put it on your pointer. You need to pull some more yarn. Okay, then finger knit like normal. The bottom 2 over the top. Hopefully that's really making sense. Okay guys, I'm really sorry. I meant to show you and I got so excited about showing you how to combine it and attach it to itself. I forgot to show you this stitch marker. So you can use a little stitch marker if you want to remember exactly where you kind of combined it. It's easy to tell because it kind of loops around and there's this extra part at the top, but you definitely can put a stitch marker if you want to kind of remember this is where we were when we started attaching it again. But it is not necessary. But if you want to, you can put it there. I'll kind of show you when I go back around how it shows you where you were, but it is not necessary. I meant to show you and do it actually when we attached it to itself and I just got sidetracked, so I'm sorry. But there are a lot of, let me stop and show you, there are a lot, say you're doing this and then, you know, if you're home with little kids and, you know, somebody has an accident or spills something or you need to jump up, there are these big stitch markers that you can really loop through each finger. So you take it off and you loop all this on here and you just lay it down, and when you come back, you can put your fingers back in the loops and pick up where you left off. So these are super handy to have. It's just normally, for the most part, I'm kind of, you know, I'm just doing it in one sitting. So we're just gonna keep going all the way around. Now the most important thing of the whole part when you attach it is that you don't wanna get sidetracked and just start finger knitting and forget to attach it, because all that's gonna do is finger knit kind of a weird tail off in this direction that's not attached. So you wanna make sure every single time you're putting your pointer through a loop, and that's what's keeping it connected. That way it's adding width to the headband instead of just adding another kind of tail going off in another direction. If you do that, I taught my girls how to do this, and they're 8, 10, and 11, and they all can do it. They've all made their own headband. So it's definitely something that's very doable, but every now and then they'll forget. They'll be watching TV and doing it, and they'll get distracted and forget to keep adding a loop right here. And we just undo the stitches and go back, and it's pretty easy to find a spot where you can reattach it and pick up where you're supposed to be. So if you do that, it's okay. You don't need to undo the whole project. Just undo it until you can tell where you're supposed to be and reattach it. Okay, we're basically back to where we were. So now you could be done if you wanted to. Well, let's do one more stitch. We're getting to the point where we could be done if we wanted to, and it'll be a thinner. Let me show you. You can leave the stitch marker on there. They're easy to take off at any time, so you don't have to worry about taking it off at a certain time or anything. It would be a pretty thin, because it kind of rolls up. It'd be a little bit of a thin headband, so I'm going to do one more time around and see how that looks. That's the best part to me, is you can either put this longer stitch marker on there and actually try it on, or you can kind of try it on while it's on your fingers, which looks really goofy, but you can do it. And just play with it. You might want a thinner headband, you might want a thicker. So I'm going to keep going one more time around. So this, to give you an idea, is 2 times around. This is obviously, this is the right side out right here. This is 2 times around. Okay, so for what I want, this is enough times around. Of course, you can stop with, like I said, put the stitch marker in it, the big one like this, or with your fingers, kind of try it on and see if it's the width that you like. Okay, so I've tried it on. I know that it's a width that I like. So we're gonna go ahead and finish it off. Let me make sure I'm exactly where I need to be. Yeah, that's good. So you want to kind of line up. So hopefully you can see this really easily if I put my hand through there. So it's gonna kind of jut out on both sides. So you have the middle section, and then this is like where we had started in the very beginning. This is where it's ending. So you want to just end in the same spot it starts. So it's kind of making a vertical line like this. Obviously your stitch marker can mark the spot for you if you did it that way. And to fingernail it off, you're gonna put your pinky one on your ring finger and then go over. Then you're gonna put the pinky one on your middle finger, bottom one over, your pinky one on your pointer, bottom one over, like this. What we're gonna do is we'll leave it like this, and you're gonna pull out a pretty long section. So I still have the one loop in my finger. You want enough that's kind of, this is what we're gonna wrap around to make kind of the knotted section. So I'm pulling out a pretty large section. I'd rather have too much and have to cut it off than to not have enough. So let's see. This is the part you're gonna be wrapping around the headband like this. And so you wanna make sure you can do plenty. So I'm kind of giving it a go on my fingers just to get an idea. So that is definitely more than enough. So let me go ahead and grab my scissors and cut it. That's probably way too much, but I like to have plenty to play with than not enough. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put the end that we just cut through the loop. You're gonna pull it. Now, of course, we cut off a lot, so you have to pull it all the way through. And you're gonna pull it tight. That kind of ends that section. It kind of knots it off. So that's good, just like that. Okay, so we have our tail that we started with, and we have our end that we just did, and all you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and bring them together. So I kind of have this big long section, which is a lot. So I'm gonna use mainly this shorter one to kind of do the tying part so that I don't have to keep messing with this really long piece. So you're gonna pull them together like this. Do you see how it's already making kind of the cute little headband shape? And you're gonna tie a knot right here. Just like that. I'm gonna do one more knot. Like I said, it's so much easier if I just kind of leave the big bulk sitting here and use the shorter kind of tail piece to do all of the tying part. Just like that. Okay, I'm still gonna leave the tail, so we're not gonna cut it. So just leave it over to the side. Now you can turn it the other way. This is gonna be the outside, like this. Of course, if you want to do it backwards like this, you can. I prefer it like this. This is the actual knitted design. Okay, so leave the tail to the side. Now I have all the bulk for the wrapping. You kind of want to find the end, and just so that it's easier to wrap it around, I kind of take the end like this and wrap it around my hand. I know I cut way too much, so you're not gonna need as much as I did, but just wrap all the extra kind of like this, because you just want a little bit to work with, but you don't want it to be too crazy long, because you're gonna be basically wrapping it around like this. So you're kind of passing this whole balled up section. And this is right where the knot is on the underneath that we just tied. So you're wrapping it around where they joined together. And you can, in the beginning, you can start by pulling pretty tight. I pull it pretty tight. And you're just passing the ball of extra yarn back around. And now this is where up to you, how tight you pull it, how much of this you do as far as like the width of how much you do. This section is up to you. It's kind of like, it's not a knot, but I call it kind of the knotted section. I think it's super cute to wear this part in the front, whether it's in the center or on the side of your head. Of course, you could wrap it around and put it in the back if you don't really like this part. If you don't like this part and you don't want it to be obvious, you could do it super small like this. If you're gonna wear it underneath, if you want it to be a more kind of a cute accent of the headband, then I would do a bigger section. So I kind of go a little bit to the right, and then now I'm gonna start and go back towards the left. Okay, so that is looking pretty cute. This is where you can stop and kind of go try it on and see what you think. If you want the knot to be bigger, if you want to stop right there, you can kind of get a good idea. So I'm going to go try it on and be right back. Okay, I tried it on. It's really cute as is. I think I'm just going to wrap it around one more time, kind of quickly, right to left and back, just to give it a little bit more chunk. And I could have been pulling it less tight if you wanted it kind of to be looser. That's definitely an option too. This is where it's totally up to you. If you even wanted to stop and do it a different color and have like a contrasting color, that would be super cute and something that you could do as well. You would just tie a knot in the back and add on a new color. So maybe if you're doing like a school spirit kind of one and it's red and black, do the headband in red. And then when you get to this part in the back where you had that tail, just tie on a black yarn. Okay, now that I'm back to the side where the tail is, I'm going to pull this around to the back. I know I don't need this much, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. And we're going to tie a knot in the underneath right where the tail is. That's why we kept the tail here. We didn't cut it off yet. And so now I just have these two ends. Hopefully you can see this. One that I just wrapped around, one from the tail from the very beginning. And we're just tying a knot. So if the tail had been on this side, I would have made sure I wrapped up and ended on that side. I'm going to end the wrapping on whatever side the tail is on. Then just tie a knot or two. Tie it real tight. Now this part is totally optional. So you can either cut it off right here and have the knot cut off, or sometimes I like to just thread this yarn through a super big plastic needle and I just kind of weave it through the underneath. Just like this. It kind of pulls a knot underneath some of the wrapping so it's less obvious. So especially if you're giving as a gift, this is a nice finishing touch that just makes it a little bit more seamless. So put the yarn through the needle. Just kind of stick it through. There's no right or wrong way to do that. And if you have them both through there and you kind of yank it, it will pull the knot under the wrapping. The knot's pretty much invisible now, and then you can cut your little ends off right here. I pull it pretty tight when I cut the ends. Make sure you're only cutting the ends and nothing else. And then when you do that, you can kind of slide the wrapping over and you have no seams, no knots, nothing is shown. And then you can kind of flatten out the back of the headband. It really does roll. So once you put it on, that you can kind of flatten it out. And that is it. So that is the super cute little headband ear warmer, perfect for fall and winter. And like I said, you can pick whatever color yarn you want. You can use a thinner yarn or a thicker yarn. If you use a thinner yarn, you might need to go around more than 2 times. Remember, I did 2 times when I was connecting it around. You might want to do 3 or 4 because if it's really thin, it's not going to knit up as fast. So if you want it chunky and thick like this, it might take more times around. But it looks super cute. Like I said, you can do a coordinating color in the center if you wanted to. There's tons of ways you can customize it. Like always, I will link all the supplies I used, including the stitch markers and this little plastic needle in the description below this video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and make sure you subscribe for more videos. Bye!
She's crafty and she knows it. She's crafty and she knows it. She's crafty and she knows. She's crafty and she knows.